what's the problem with this picture here? Right? This is often what we're doing. We're usually doing the wrong thing. This is why most behavior plans don't work. We are focusing on the wrong thing. We're focusing all of our attention on the behavior here and missing out on what's actually going on behind us, right? So that's just really important to think about. So these are the two most common response patterns to trigger situations. So anxiety, it's really coming from that fear of abandonment, or something's going to happen to us. And so we might see aggression, we might see clinginess, or there's avoidance because of that fear of rejection. Rejection is actually the number one feeling. It's ingrained in our brain. Fear of rejection is ingrained in our brain. And it's the biggest feeling that we actually feel in our bodies. It feels the worst. And so we're going to see all sorts of behaviors that really come from these pieces. Most of the emotional outbursts that we see or I've ever dealt with comes from core hurts, that they feel like they don't belong. And so if they don't have a lot of friends and you don't have a great relationship with them, we often see big behaviors. And so you can see how this isn't just about anxiety. I mean, it is anxiety, but if you were coming for this, anxious Susie, you weren't thinking about aggressive Bobby, well, I would actually focus a lot on aggressive Bobby because there's probably a lot of anxiety. Now, when we see big emotions, big anger, being an effective emotion coach, you need to help them regulate. And this is really important. We need to give them space for regulation. I love this video.
That's it.
Yeah.
Do it again. Oh no, that wasn't it. Pick it up. Bit of a late reaction.
A little bit of a
there,
late reaction, right? But he just needed that time. Kids need the time to process information, to process those big emotions. There are several steps to being an effective emotion coach. I'm just going to list these two. These are the most two as a teacher that you would need, in a classroom. One is awareness of what's going on for the student, even if it's anger, and also what's going on for us. If we are feeling stressed and irritable and angry and out of control, we're not going to be able to help co-regulate, right? That's really important. I don't have enough time to talk about co-regulation, self-regulation, but these are really important. Then we need to listen. And listen, I know that you listen, but they need to feel heard. And teachers are really good talkers. We need to stop to be able to listen and make sure that they feel that you actually listened and actually understand them. That is really important. So being aware of what's going on of their emotions and our emotions. Now, we have to be essentially effective communicators. And the number one killer of effective communication is talking. And as adults, we want to jump in. We want to make them feel better. We want to try to fix things. We want to try to cheer them up or do all of these things, but it only makes it worse. It also makes it worse. I cannot tell you how many schools I have gone into and heard, it's usually someone in administration, but it's not always, but heard an adult yelling at a kid to shut up, just shut up. You need to listen to me. It's the other way around. We actually need to listen to them. That's really important. So we got to talk less and listen more. That's like the key piece. That's, I would say, number two. If you stop the accommodations, and number two is just stop talking and just listen and to create that space so they feel safe, that they feel heard and understood. That's really important. You need to give your full attention to everything that's going on and really try to understand from their perspective. So that's important. And we're respectful, even if they're yelling at us and calling us names and swearing. We get all, you can't talk to me like that. You need to speak to me with respect. No. Like, this is not the time. Their prefrontal cortex is offline, right? They cannot. They're a wild animal, essentially. We all become a wild animal when our prefrontal cortex goes offline. We need to create safety and listen. That's going to be important. Later on, you can address the swearing. Hey, bud, let's talk about what happened this morning. Yeah, like they'll know right away what they did, right? Okay, let's talk about this. What can we do differently for today? Or what are some, what are some of the consequences here that you think are going to be in line with what happened this morning. But we want to make sure how we understand how they perceive the situation, because usually we come in with our prefrontal cortex online. So we are going to see the situation extremely differently from how they did. So we want to make sure we understood. So let me make sure I got this. So you're playing soccer first of all, sidebar, like soccer is probably the number one problem with a lot of the boys at recess. So maybe we can look at soccer a little bit. But anyways, okay, so you're playing soccer and Johnny went and picked up the ball with his hands. Oh man, that's breaking the rules, isn't it? You can't pick up a ball with your hands. No wonder you were frustrated. Okay, so you got frustrated and you told him to put down the ball and he didn't. So you punched him in the face. Did I get that? That's probably not how you would respond. You'd probably like, I don't care what he did. You're not allowed to punch anybody in the face. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, he knows. You've got smart students. They know the rules. They don't need in that moment to you lecture them. They need you to understand and listen from their perspective. And if they feel like you really get it, like, yes, you've heard me, you understand the situation. Okay. Well, what are we going to do? Right? If they're still escalated, maybe that plan making is going to be helpful. So this is what you could say. So let me see if I got it. You're playing soccer, Johnny grabbed the ball, he used his hands, he broke, and then you punched him in the face. Did I get it? Is there more? So you could have the script, you could memorize this. My hack though to everybody, this is like hack number 2, adjective. Respond with an adjective. Oh, sometimes it doesn't even have to be a word, just says a lot. Or it could be, man, that sucks. Or how it sucks being the adjective. Or how frustrating being the adjective. That's probably your best response because then you're going to think too much. You're going to start talking too much. 5 words or less. Dude, that sucks. No wonder you're upset. And then just silence. And you'll see the stress melting away from them. Might not go all the way, but now they know that there's safety, that you are trying to listen. We're not going to take it personal. Think about when we get angry, we say the most hurtful things. Kids are going to go for the heart. You're the worst parent ever, worst teacher ever. I hate you, right? They're going to say, they're not thinking straight. Oftentimes they'll come back and they'll feel so sorry, right? Our goal here is to create calm, not to escalate the situation. So we're not going to remind them or lecture them or make sure they're speaking to us respectfully or correcting them or, not taking it personally. We want to focus on the goal, and the goal is connection, making sure that they feel heard and understood. That is so important. And the thank you, I wouldn't say thank you to them, but it's like, this is the energy we want to come. Thank you for punching Johnny in the face. I get to work on my co-regulation skills right now. Thank you for this opportunity. That's the kind of energy I want you to come into the situation with. Just don't say thank you, actually, to the students. How we talk is important too. Whenever we monologue or talk at kids or lecture or, any of those kinds of things, we create anxiety and disconnect. And we need to make sure we're, creating quality in the way that we talk, where we're showing that safety, that we're listening and, looking at how we talk. We want to replace any negativity with curiosity. This is good in any conversations you have with anyone. It could be your own children, your students, a spouse, colleagues. This is really non-negotiable. If you want to create safety for students to be able to express themselves, to promote their resilience, to promote their emotion regulation, self-regulation, to strengthen our relationship, we have to get rid of any negativity within our interactions with students. And I mean anything that they perceive as negative. So even if you're trying to be helpful, but you're coming in with like, what are you doing? Like, let me see how I can help you, right? You are furrowing your eyebrows. What they see is going to affect how they interpret the situation. And if they see this, even if you've got a super nice voice, a helpful voice, they're going to hear yelling. If you've ever had a kid say, don't yell at me, and you're like, I'm not even mad. Like, what's going on? It's something that you were doing. Maybe you're standing over top of them that looked like, it was threatening. And so they're going to perceive that. So you don't want to come in. If you're unimpressed, literally you're cutting off, your eyes are closed down. You're cutting off information. You're not open-minded. You're not listening. You want to come from the curious gaze, right? Like if you were curious, you'd be leaning forward, your eyes would be wide, your face would be open. It's really hard to get angry. Oh, wow. Okay. So then you hit Johnny in the face, right? It's really hard to do anything other than, create safety when you have that curious gaze. So that's really important. So this is an effective response. Whenever anxiety shows up, the best response is to be supportive and listening, making sure that they feel heard. on the one hand, but also confident that they're going to figure it out. So what's going to happen next? What do we need to do now? Right? You know, if they say, I don't want the fire drill, I'm really scared about the fire drill. Oh man, yeah, I can see that you're really stressed out. Bummer. You don't want to be here. Bummer. Bummer is that adjective. So what are you going to do? What do you need that's going to be helpful? I want to go home. Oh, you want to go home? I see. Okay, yeah, man. Well, what are we going to do now? Right? That's not an option. So now what can we do? Um, Power of I don't know. If they're asking a lot of questions, I don't know is probably your best response. So do that. We have all heard about looking at growth mindset, focusing on our kids' effort over outcome. And this is a key reason too, showing our confidence that they can do it, getting them to start thinking about how they're going to do it, face the situation, cope with the big emotions, and then debriefing afterward, can be helpful. These are just a few examples of different things that you can do. Whether it's around learning, like even just, anxiety aside, if they have a really hard math, quadratic equations, they're really getting frustrated over their polynomials or whatever it is. Okay, so what do you know? How are you going to get started? What strategies are you going to use? What are some learning tools that you can figure out this problem, right? There might be a YouTube video, there might be a textbook example, whatever it is. How are you going to figure it out? Let me know. And then we can debrief and what went well. So here are just a few different coaching cues that you can use. Just find ones that are important. And when failures happens, rather than beating themselves up, we want to create a different energy around it. Yes, today is your lucky day. We have a fire drill. I know that you're so scared of these. This is our lucky day to teach that amygdala that you can handle it, right? To show them who's the boss. What did you notice? What did you learn? What needs to happen next time? All of these things can be important. Now, curiosity is an important part of the process in managing anxiety, in managing trauma even. It's the key response we want to start having when we come into, interacting with an anxious child, but we want them to start picking up curiosity as the response to anxiety instead of pushing it away. When we get curious with what's going on, we can respond in flexible ways, and that's what we need to start doing. I'm going to talk about externalizing. That's a whole piece of the compass, but for right now, I do just want to say part of being that emotion coach is being able to help kids express their emotions. Right. And so with anxiety, naming those emotions. So as a whole class, you can have, every day, let's do a check-in. Maybe it's kids are looking at emotion wheel and they're just talking with a friend about how they're feeling, right? Every day we want them to be able to talk about how they're feeling. All of those things are so important. I practice this regularly with your class to develop the skill, whether it's word wheels or the emotion cards. You could do check-ins at the start of the class, throughout the class, at the end of the class. But this is a key piece of emotional intelligence, emotion regulation, anxiety management, that they are able to drop in and see how they're feeling at any given time. Right. So that when big emotions start riling up, they don't have to take over. So I really like having some sort of visual like this just to help them build that emotion vocabulary. And we want to connect it with the physiological piece. So one thing that you could be doing is saying, okay, identify how you're feeling, and then where in the body are you feeling that. A lot of our children, teenagers, and even adults have a really hard time connecting with their bodies and that interoceptive awareness, knowing how I'm feeling. And that's a huge piece of the anxiety management, is to be able to identify where in my body I'm feeling that. So being able to just sit and notice. Now, for younger kids, that might be hard. I don't know where, happiness is in my body. So you might just want to do something like, where do you feel that your chair touching your body? Just pay attention to that, right? Feel what your big toe on your left foot, it feels like. Is it tingly? Is it cool? Is it warm? Is it achy, right? Whatever that is. So you would add that to your check-in. How are you feeling and where do you feel it in the body? That's the second part. And the third is, how does it feel like? Right? That's really important when we're looking at building all of the skills. This is a key skill that they need to be able to learn. You could do things like a giraffe stretch, stretching your arms out way up up, up in the sky, touch the sky. Where are you feeling that stretch the most? Or, out in front, you could do all sorts of stretches. One thing that I like to do is, having kids, and I'll do this if I were there in person, I would have you do this with me, where we put our hands out like zombies and we're going to see how long we can keep our hands out. And your body and your mind might start saying, put down your arms, put down your arms. You could feel the burning in your shoulders or somewhere in your arms. So just starting to pay attention. What is your brain saying? Put it down, put it down. What is your body saying? What is it feeling like? And they're going to start to feel uncomfortable. Can you sit with that? Just noticing where you're feeling. Where do you notice this discomfort? Does it travel down your arms, right? You might feel it. For me, I feel it in the crook of my elbow usually. So we can stay in that position, even if our body and our mind are screaming, don't just put it down, put it down. But we can take control of our brain and keep doing it for 5 seconds longer. So there's lots of different things you could do. Another one is maybe writing with your non-dominant hand, just noticing how it feels. Where does it feel awkward? Where in your body? What is your mind saying? Just so that they can start learning some of those basic skills that they're going to eventually need for that emotion regulation. So I'm going to jump over Inspire, just because I will come back to that when we need it. Right now, though, I want to talk about externalize and expose. Now that we've been talking about emotions a little bit, because this externalization is really important. We want to externalize that anxiety or the anger or, whatever the overwhelming emotions are, because we can get sucked into it really easily. And then we get all tangled up with the big emotions, right? And then we believe whatever story comes along with it, that I can't handle it, right? And so they believe it and not recognizing it's just a thought. So as they get older, then it's hopeless. I'm always going to be like this. I'm always just anxious, right? And they're having those stories. And so we want to separate it. You are not your worry. You are not your anger. You are not your behavior. So we want to make sure, ideally, if we can give it a name. Some kids are just too cool for school and they're just going to call it anxiety or anger, but maybe it's, the worry gremlin, scaredy cat. I've had Bob. So many of my kids have named that worry Bob or George or November I've had, or, whatever it is that they want. Sometimes I'll even have them draw it out. What does it look like? If it was a shape, if it was a color, right? So we want to just kind of create this external sort of being. It's like in the movie Inside Out, right? We had joy, we had anger, we had disgust. And we actually have learned that there's 7 subcells. We actually do have 7 subcells in our head, each with a different function. So it can kind of be fun and it takes off some of that overwhelm. And so that mystery that anxiety likes to put over top of us, of uncertainty and all of those things, it's gone, because now we know, when does the gremlin like to come out? When does the worry like to show its head? What does it like to do? How does it feel in the body, right? So we can start looking for these things and getting on the proactive. We want to get on offense and be proactive. So just like with the gremlins, the reason I like gremlins is, it starts out with Gizmo, who's cute and he's trying to help his boy, right? But when we feed that anxiety or feed Gizmo at the wrong time, well, first we got to get him wet and then he multiplies. But when we feed them at the wrong time, they turn into these mischievous creatures. And I like to talk about them as mischievous, not bad, because anxiety is actually good. We need it for survival, but they're mischievous. Sometimes they like to get out of control, just like minions too, right? Sometimes can be helpful, but sometimes not. I really love Loki. That's another one from Marvel, who's the god of mischief, can be helpful sometimes, but is also very self-serving. And so when these gremlins get out of control and then they take over and they try to ruin our lives, right? And so just having that, drawing and that name can be really helpful, because if we can name it, we can tame it. Same thing with our emotions. Mr. Rogers said, if it's mentionable, it's manageable. So maybe you have an over-exaggerator Olive, right? Who just takes one small itty bitty sort of incident and just makes it the worst thing ever. Or teaser Tom who just, thinks that everybody's going to laugh at you. Everybody's going to call you a name, pretty much humiliate you in front of the entire universe. Or catastrophizing Carl, who makes you think that it's the end of the world as we know it, right? The world is going to swallow us up whole. Or here's Bob, right? Whatever you want to call it. So we want to externalize it. So now they can start taking back control of their lives and start bossing back that anxiety. And we can work as a team. You and I are going to work together for whenever catastrophizing Carl comes out and likes to cause some problem. When we name it, it does make it it takes the edge off a little bit, right? And it's not, when we externalize it, it's not something wrong with them. I can start taking some control and getting on offense because they're predictable. They show up at pretty much the same time. We always know when they're going to show up, when there's going to be a fire drill, when I don't know what the outcome is, right? Whenever uncertainty shows up, whatever that is. So we give it a name. We understand what it does. We can expose it for what it is. Right? What are its tricks? Yep, this is what you do. I've got a test, Bob. You like to try to freak me out right before my test. Oh, there's my stomach. Yeah, I'm starting to feel sick. I knew that was going to happen, right? I knew you were going to show up now. Thanks, but no thanks. That's the kind of thing that we want to do. So it's about awareness. We really want to create awareness first, so we're not getting sucked away with the gremlin before we even realize, oh my gosh, the gremlin attacked, right? What makes it, when does it show up? What does it want me or others to do? Usually accommodation, avoid, get away, feel better. And what can we do instead? So we want to start looking at the opposite action, and I'll be getting into that a little bit. So once they have that awareness of what's happening, when anxiety likes to show up, what's getting in the way of things that are important to them, they can start to respond differently. And that's what we want. We don't want to change anything. We can't get rid of Bob and all of the other, anxiety gremlins. It's about how we can respond to them differently. And so there's a few different things. The dare and defy is the most important. But I think it's important to go through accept and unwind and then the detach and enhance a little bit. But we can't outrun it. And that's where this accept and unwind is really important. We can't outrun it. We can't get rid of it. We need to move with it. So we're not being resistant anymore. We're actually embracing it, right? And that's going to be really important. So we need to embrace it, but untangle ourselves from it. So we're not all caught up and stressed and stuck in the stress and worry. Now, we have over 50,000 thoughts a day. Thoughts are just thoughts. Okay. And so many of them are bizarre. Most of them we're not even conscious. We're not even aware of what's going on. But if you're sensitive, those bizarre ones really stand out. So if you were here, this guy sitting on here, what would you think? You would probably visualize yourself or start worrying about falling off, and you can see yourself, right? And I bet if you've been by a cliff, looking out at something beautiful, I bet a lot of you have probably imagined what would happen if I just pushed the guy next to me, right? Or what would happen if I just, did a little jump or whatever it is. We don't ever talk about it because then we look like a sociopath, right? We never talk about it. Especially in teenage years, we start to have way more suicidal and homicidal thoughts, not because we are suicidal, just that's what our brain is always going. It's always looking out for danger. And these are things that could be danger. What would happen if I kept going on Deerfoot Trail at 150 kilometers an hour and straight right on the Calf Rope Bridge and smash, right? We have these things, but we never talk about it. And it's really important that we talk about our brain has all sorts of wacky ideas all the time. And when we're anxious, we pick up on them way more quickly. It's just a thought. We can't push it away. Stop thinking about it. Stop thinking. No, it's just going to grow bigger, right? It's just going to bounce back. If you had a beach ball in a pool and you try to push it underwater, it's the same thing with their thoughts. What's going to happen? It's just going to come back up and smack you in the face. So we can't control our thoughts. We can't get rid of our thoughts. We can change our response to them, however, and that's what we need to do. And so this is where mindfulness comes in. And mindfulness is not about trying to relax. We got to get that out of our brain. It's not about trying to relax, because that's just another outcome. Whenever we're telling kids to relax or we're giving them relaxing strategies, it's another another trap that's going to make it worse. Focusing on making relaxation the outcome just worsens anxiety because we're telling them anxiety's bad. You shouldn't be feeling this way. And so the next time they feel anxious, what's wrong with me? And if the relaxation strategies aren't working and they still feel anxious, nothing works. Something's wrong with me, right? It's just a problem. We just want to get out of that. We can't control it, so we're not trying to relax. We're not trying to change our thoughts. It's not about fighting them or ignoring them or change or whatever it is. We have that ironic processing. Remember, as soon as I say, don't think of a polar bear, whatever you do, don't think of a polar bear. So it's not about getting rid of it. So I like these two dials. We have our anxiety dial on the left. We have zero control over it. So stop trying to do anything to control that anxiety dial. Breathing, relaxation, stop thought stopping, whatever you're trying to do, it's not helpful. It's like the unwanted party guests. The more we try to get them out of the party, they're just going to make a bigger and bigger and bigger scene. It's just better to ignore them. They still might be disruptive, but whatever. We don't have to waste our time hanging out with them. We can just go and enjoy ourselves. So we want to focus on the acceptance style, right? It's kind of like another analogy that I really like is, I was 7 years older than my brother. So as a teenager in the 80s, mind you, where there was a lot of fun to be had in early 90s, a lot of fun to be had. It sucked whenever I had to go babysit my stupid brother, right? I couldn't ditch him. I couldn't get rid of him. I would have lots of ways that I could, but I couldn't. I would get in so much trouble. So it was one of those, you're so annoying. I hate you. Why did you come up today? But whatever, I'm still going out with my friends. So come along, right? That's kind of what we need to do. Super annoying, not ideal, but come along, whatever. We are going to go and do life anyways. I'm still going to go to school, even though you're here, right? So thinking of that annoying sibling, that's the kind of attitude that we almost want to have. Now, for a lot of students, they do need to unwind and disentangle themselves from their thoughts. And so we can do some experiential activities. Like we want to be able to get them to look at their thoughts, not from their thoughts. From their thoughts is, oh my gosh, this is going to happen. And everyone's going to laugh at me. And then I'm going to be the laughing stock. And then I have to drop out of school. And then it just spirals, right? So we just want to look at them. Oh, that's an interesting thought. Interesting. Right. And so some experiential things that you could do, you want to practice to teach them, and then they can do that. So watching cars, right? Maybe you just have a little video and they have to watch cars. And as they watch them, as the car drives by, you're going to label it white. SUV, white. It could be, the color van, silver. So you're just going to label it, and kids can just label whatever it is, right? We have lots of different types of videos that they watch, and they're just labeling it, right? We're not engaged. We're just labeling whatever it is that we see as we go. Okay, so that's the example of how we teach the children what they're going to do. So now we're going to notice our thoughts and just label it. You could label it past, future, current. This is boring. Now, I wonder what we're going to have for dinner. Future, right? Just as the thought comes up, we're just going to label it. Or maybe it's a category: dinner, school, friends, right? However they come. Using your non-dominant hands. So before I was looking at how do we feel it in the body and frustration, but maybe now we can just notice what thoughts come up. This is really hard. This sucks. Why are we doing this? Just label it. Just notice it. Whenever we've got these things, we try to, the more we try, if we think of it as like a snow globe, the more we try to get the snow down to the bottom, we're just mixing things up more. We're just creating more of a snowstorm. The best thing we can do is just put it down. It's the same thing with kids, students. If they're having a big emotional or aggressive meltdown, you trying to do anything is just going to make it worse. You're going to escalate it. Think of a snow globe. How do you get the snow down and settled the fastest? You literally just put it down and wait and wait and wait. That's what we need to do. So we need to be able to use those skills in the context of an emotional experience. And so it's great when we do these experiential things, and it's great when they're calm, but we want to start bringing an emotional experience to things as well. So having a mindful mood induction, we are bringing on an emotional state. right? It's far too difficult to be non-judgmental and to be present focused when we're feeling a strong emotion without any practice with emotions. We can talk about it all we want, but until yes, no, they know they're supposed to be calm. They know they're not supposed to hit anybody. They know they're not supposed to scream. They know that they're supposed to do those things. They just have never had practice to be able to do what they need to do in a controlled setting. We can talk about swimming for 10,000 hours. We can talk about skating for 10,000 hours, but they're never going to actually learn until they go and practice and practice and practice. And so we want to do that with emotions as well. Oopsie daisies. So, one of the things that I'll do with frustration tolerance, for example, is I'll bring kids into my office and say, okay, we're going to work on frustration tolerance. We're going to play a game. I'm going to win. And I know I'm going to win because I'm going to cheat, and I'm a bad cheat. I'm going to rub it in your face. I'm going to call you names. I'm going to do all these mean things because your job is to keep your prefrontal cortex online and use these skills that we've practiced, right? Talking back. Oh, I can see frustration Fred coming up. It's okay, frustration Fred. I've got it under control, right? So we need to actually practice those skills. So we can do mindful mood inductions. And I would start with, some more comfortable feelings, let's say. They're still uncomfortable, but not so uncomfortable like fear. So we're going to have them observe their reactions. So for example, maybe we're going to observe your reactions or observe what's going across the screen when we watch the video. Now we're going to observe your reactions, whatever comes up in your body. How are you feeling? Where do you notice that in your body? Right? And we're going to focus on the present moment. And then we can debrief at the end, if there's time. And so there's lots of different things that you could do. It could be funny videos. It could be sad videos. It could be, engaging, fun, like music videos. So just whatever different types of emotions that children might feel, right? So we can just show a quick little one. I love this one. It's just so heartwarming.
That is going to make you laugh now. Ready?
An oldie but a goodie. And where do you feel that? And it's really interesting because you might feel like oftentimes we feel, but most of the feelings is from our neck down to like just below our belly button. That's where we feel most things, whether it's joy and excitement or fear or sadness and stress. So just being able to watch these things can be awesome, right? So we can kind of induce it. Here's another one. It's a little bit of a different response.
Yeah. Hello. Hello.
What are you noticing? Where do you feel it in your body?
I never seen that face before. Hi. Are you emotional? You're gonna make me cry. Hi.
Cutest little baby.
Yeah.